Hey guys, thank you for dialing in. Evgeny, Brijesh, Renee, Nicholas, Joy. Thanks for dialing in. We're just giving other attendees to join in for a few minutes, and then we'll start with the session. Cool. I think we can start while our other community members dial in. Hey guys, again, yeah, thanks everyone for making time and joining us for this yet another wonderful session that we have lined up for. Before we start, thanks to our sponsors, without whom this is not possible. Sparkline, Miro, Happy Marketeer, Decision Science, and eClerx. Thanks to them for helping us run these events. Secondly, thanks to the speakers for joining us. I would like to welcome Richard from Dexfinity, Udi from Salesforce, and also Marissa from Lotame. They'll be taking us through very interesting topics and very relevant topics to what's happening in the digital world. Looking forward to those sessions. And also, as usual, for every session, we'll have Q&A session. And the best question gets a $50 voucher selected by the speaker themselves. So feel free to paste or type in your questions in the Q&A section of the chat window, and we'll have it passed on to the speakers, and they'll be answered towards the end of the session. Right? Cool. So starting with the first session will be by Richard from Dexfinity. He's going to speak to us on data-driven advertising in fashion industry and the challenges that the fashion industry or a client would face, and how is that mitigated through in-house ad ops team, right? Richard, over to you. Feel free to introduce yourself and deep dive into the topic. Thanks for joining us, Richard.
Thank you, and let's get into the presentation itself. All right. Thank you very much, guys, for having me today. I'm Richard. I'm a senior performance marketer at Dexfinity. I've been with Dexfinity for over 9 years now. I have a background in Google Ads and Facebook advertising, and now I'm taking full benefits of working remotely from my home, which is in the mountains of Slovakia. Thankfully, we have high-speed internet access here, so I do live here with my wife and my 2 wonderful children. Something about the Dexfinity, though. Dexfinity, we are a team of 60+ professionals all across Europe, mostly based in Slovakia, Austria, and Romania. And we do focus on working. We say we work when you sleep, because we often work for projects in different time zones, and we take that as a full benefit. So we work while the client's actually asleep, and the campaigns are ready when the client wakes up. And we do also like to work on a commission and success fee basis. Most of our clients are e-commerce businesses with the desire to grow or to expand to new countries. Given this background, let me move over to our actual topic, because we do have quite a few clients coming from the fashion industry, and we've seen over and over again these clients coming to us with very similar problems or very similar issues. And Just to name some of them, we will dive into 3 of those. In the past, we've seen that the questions were more towards, we do not have enough data to do this, or we do not have enough data to do that. Now it's more leaning towards, all right, we have all the data we need. What do we do with the data? So I'll focus on 3 issues, which are all covered by in-house data and how we turn those in-house data into actual solutions for the clients. Let me start by the first one, and that is the wide product margin range. What we see in some of our clients that are fashion resellers who feature multiple brands on their online stores is that their margins, their product margins, or their manufacturers' margins are spread out across a wide range, which of course makes managing ads extremely difficult, since if you are trying to optimize your ads towards one single KPI or one single objective, then by nature you are averaging data, and it's actually causing a lot more problems in the background. Let me just start by showing an excerpt from an analysis from one of our clients. And we did look at the product margins for different manufacturers, and what we see that the margins vary greatly. And the client approached us with a simple task: okay, how can we manage our ads more effectively? If we look at the pure average, for example, if the client was managing and optimizing his ads towards a simple break-even point, then this would not be very efficient, because as you can see, in some of the manufacturers' ranges, the client would be overspending and would be actually losing money. Whereas in the other ones, the client would be, on one hand, earning some money and being profitable. On the other hand, though, the question still remains if those campaigns are not too undervalued, if the client is actually spending enough to promote these products. So in effect, it's a lose-lose scenario, because on one hand, you are losing money on one end, and on the other hand, you are not earning enough money on the other hand. And it snowballs as the client enters more markets. These analyses became more and more difficult. So what we came up with is that instead of optimizing our campaigns towards one single KPI, let's just take the product manufacturer margins. Let's take these data, import them into Google Analytics, and then use the Google Analytics data to actually manage our campaigns. And let's do this instead of managing towards a simple figure of cost of sales, for example. One thing that has to be noted, though, in order for anybody to be able to do this, you will have to have your Google Analytics set up through the measurement protocol, so that you capture 100% of your data, and then also that you are able to actually import the data into analytics. Once we have that, we calculate we call it a clean margin. What's a clean margin? We basically subtract any other discounts or any product returns which happen along the way for the manufacturer, and then so that we have a pure margin which we are work with. And based on this margin, we're actually able to calculate the bids or the return on ad spend for that particular product range. And then what we do is we import this set of instructions to your Google Ads account, and then we are able to manage the ads. How does it work in practice? Along the way, we developed 2 solutions, though. Option 1, we were looking after of completely free solution, and 100% separate Google Analytics property, which does not feature revenues as your figures, but it features the actual margin earned. And then you connect this Google Analytics property to your Google account, and you set up your target ROAS on your shopping campaigns based on this. And actually, it works quite all right. Although we did realize that it actually takes some time and some skill to set this up. So we also created an option 2, and we created a off-the-shelf product. We called it Magic Script, and it's actually another company of ours which only focuses on product bidding. So that's one of the solutions and issues. The second issue we've encountered with online shop retailers is that we've seen a conversion rate vary greatly depending on the product sizes available. Because if we take this red jersey as an example, you can see that the conversion rate of any particular size varies depending on general distribution in the population. But also, if we took this product as a single unit in an online shop, we see that the total conversion rate of the product is also dependent on the number of sizes in which this is available. How can we use this data to actually optimize our current ad spend? That was the question we were faced with. And what we came up with was a mix of product size scores, where we took into consideration the actual conversion rate of that size, and also we accounted for revenues that particular size was earning, transactions it was responsible in, and then also the seasonality of that product, if it's going in season or going out of season, because that's one of the crucial factors you have to factor in the world of fashion. And since now we got all the size scores and their probability and impact on the actual revenues, now we have the scores. So what do we do with the scores? The scores are processed by Google Apps script, a script which we wrote ourselves, and then we export it to Google Sheets. And now this sheet is available, for example, as a set of instructions for Google Merchant Center, or as a product feed for Facebook ads. So basically, based on the scores, which show us how probable the actual size of the product is able to impact the revenues and the transactions in the future, we are now able to influence the offering as to if we want to bid on that particular product in shopping or in Google Ads, or if we want to actually promote that product further on Facebook. Lastly, last issue which we've encountered is that products in the world of fashion are susceptible to short-term hypes. Something appears on social media and the demand goes through the roof. We've seen that with one of our clients, 𝗲𝗄𝗻. 𝗲𝗄𝗻 is a reseller of sunglasses, prescription glasses, frames, lenses, etc. And we've seen it way too often in the past couple of years that some celebrity appears online with certain types of glasses, and now we see searches go up. We see also transactions and revenues thankfully go up, but this hype lasts only for a couple of days at most. And with 150,000 products this reseller has in stock, it's extremely difficult to rely on traditional algorithms of Facebook and Google to spot these trends, and you have to help them somehow. So we thought about it and said, okay, how can we push products into the ads, into the product dynamic ads more quickly? And so we developed a score which we call a hype score, and we take into consideration two factors actually. It's the product CTR on the website itself and the sales quantity in the past 24 hours. Using these two variables, we basically create the hype score, and using this hype score, we rank the products on the back end of the shop, of course. And then we use basically this hype score to push the products directly into dynamic ads, for example, on Facebook. So meaning, in addition to our traditional campaigns as remarketing, for remarketing, acquisition, brand promotion, etc., we also do have a separate type of campaigns which focuses only on promoting products which are in demand now at the moment. And these scores are recalculated every 24 hours. New ones are taken into account, and of course the ones which are fading out are then cut off from the ads and do not appear any longer. So to wrap things up, I present you with three solutions we use to tackle the issues in the world of fashion. And thanks for having me. I'll be grateful for any questions.
All right, thanks, Richard, for sharing. I think that's really, really interesting on how you actually make use of data. I think what you have shared today actually helps me realize that data can actually be used in so many ways, not just what's the click-through rate and such. All right, so I think we have one question from the audience. So the first question would be, how do you see the advertising strategy evolving in the cookieless such as iOS 14.5 were for online fashion advertisers? And does it impact ROI and the targeting strategies that you use?
Absolutely. It's a big topic now. It's a topic, to be honest, not anybody does not have enough data to make definitive judgments at this point. But I think it's definitely moving towards even more data gathering or website analytics on the end of the actual online shop, rather than relying on data somewhere outside. So we really will have to focus and create clusters based on user behavior on our website, and then try to push the products which are generating most interest on the website itself. But given the amount of data we are seeing now, how the audience is varying in size, I think it's very difficult to predict at this point what impact it will have. It will definitely have an impact. It's definitely a game changer in the industry, but I think at this point there is a lot of guesswork involved to be able to definitely say, okay, this is going to impact this or impact that.
All right, thank you, Richard. All right, so next up we have a question regarding the use case number 1. Is there any alternative methods that can work instead of measurement protocol for Google Analytics?
As far as I'm concerned, no. As far as I'm concerned, no. We were trying to go with some simpler solutions, but it did not work too well, so that I cannot recommend. And the only one I can recommend from personal experience that did work 100% was the implementation of measurement protocol. All
right, thank you. All right, so the next question would be, if the site also have app version where customer can also purchase products from, how does the company integrate that with the website information matrix to rank the product hype?
Well, you will have to either move up or down the funnel. So you will have to capture the interest somewhere. So it's either whether you implement more ways to track that, or you implement special codes. I mean, discount codes, which are then passed on so that you can monitor that particular user behavior. You will have to get creative with ways to track the hype somewhere else.
All right, sounds really interesting. Okay, so we have another question from Jay. So how about risk of leakage to competitors or savvy users when including margins in the data layer?
Sorry, once again, I didn't catch that. Apologies.
All right. I think it's asking about the risk of leakage to competitors or savvy users when you include margins in the data layer.
I got it. Got it. You can actually overcome that quite easily, given that you can subtract or add any variable or any figure towards that, so it does not look like a direct margins, but it may look like a random number to a competitor or to a tech-savvy user. But a great question that one is.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question as well. Yeah, okay, so I think we have one more question. And I think this would be the last question, if not we'll overrun. Okay, so it's from 𝗧𝗓𝗍𝗂𝘁. Hopefully I pronounced the name correctly. How does the hype index work, and how do you push it to Facebook in real time?
Basically, you have, after you calculate your hype index, you have a condition set on the backend saying, okay, create a product feed only with products with a hype index, let's say higher than 10. And after that, you only push that towards your product feed. You can either do that on your backend or have it set up as a single Google spreadsheet document where you only push the products with that hype index. So you can either create a feed in the back of your online shop and export it as a single XML file, or you can create it as a separate spreadsheet available on download from a URL.
All right. All right, thank you for sharing all the answers. So I think it comes to the moment we're all waiting for. So we have 5 questions. The first one is from 𝗧𝗓𝗍𝗂𝘁. Okay, hopefully I pronounced that right. The second one is out because it's from our own people, Hari. The third one is from Renee. The fourth one is from Jay. And the fifth one again is from 𝗔𝗯𝗍. Is there anyone that actually that you would like to award the $50 prize to?
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely say it's the security one, because it's something we all care about, and it was a great point actually.
All right, thank you. All right, so congrats, Jay. We'll be reaching out to you shortly. All right, thank you, Richard.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me once again.
No problem. All right, so next up we would have hopefully I pronounced your name properly as well, Udip from Salesforce. So Salesforce is actually one of the leading CRM and cloud solution. So Udip will be sharing with us more about the state of performance marketing with FLoC and 1PD. So over to you, Udip.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, let me share my screen. 1 second. Just 1 second. Yeah, can you tell me if you can see my screen?
Yep, we can see.
Okay, all right, so I'll start straight away. Thanks once again, and yes, I'll be speaking about the state of performance marketing with FLoC and first-party data. And as introduced, I work for Salesforce as a data and personalization specialist. Just a quick, my slides on here. Just a quick summary of my background. I have 11 years in MarTech and have spent a significant portion of that in performance marketing, working on client, vendor, and agency side. In my most recent roles, I've headed the ad hoc division of Adobe and Article House, and also worked on my own OTT platform. So that's basically where I'm coming from. And right now, I'm involved in growing the market share of Salesforce's Interaction Studio product across Southeast Asia. Okay, so getting straight into the topic, I've divided this into a few situations or topics because, I mean, there's a lot to cover, but in the interest of time, I'm going to be doing a high-level summary. And starting with one of the most important ones, which was just discussed a few minutes ago, was the two major changes that have come in the recent times. And I think the best way to look at the impact is, if you look at the impact in the industry when GDPR was announced, but this is like ×2. So the first one is Apple will now allow users to opt out of tracking, and which is going to lead to a significant change in how performance marketing is tracked and optimized, which is one of the questions which was brought up earlier. And second is that Google has decided to remove third-party cookie tracking on their browser sometime in 2022. This is also a significant change as third-party cookies have been the cornerstone of the ad tech industry for a long time. So basically, these were the trackers which were going around building profiles about users, and based on sites that the users were visiting, and create like a relevancy of the kind of ads that were shown to users. So as a result of these changes, what's happening right now, what's gaining ground in the market is there's going to be an increasing reliance on first-party data, given that the experience of third-party obviously means you have mostly first-party left with you. Second is there's going to be a rise in probabilistic targeting. What that means is, so first-party data is great for users you already know, but when you're trying to find new users, the lack of third-party data obviously means that you have systems which are very good at identifying your best your best case users. Some of the other areas that there are some movements right now is server-side integration with publishers and adoption of people-based marketing. So what exactly is going on between Apple and specifically Facebook now because of the iOS 14 changes is Apple, as we know, is one of the champions of user privacy. And now it's giving users the option to disallow apps to track them via IDFA. Now, this causes a few issues. So there's going to be restriction of tracking. You're going to be limited to the number of metrics that you can pull from the Apple ecosystem. There's also delays in the reports and the metrics that are sent back to you, especially if you're using the Facebook system. However, after the initial turmoil, a few measures have been introduced to soften the blow. I think that one of the most important ones is the introduction of aggregated event management to Facebook, and also Apple's SCAD network. So what SCAD network does is it enables a privacy-safe install, attribution, and measurement system. It's kind of like a replacement API that allows marketeers to measure conversion rates of app install campaigns on mobile devices for iOS apps without passing along the user level data. And so again, we can see a similar trend here is that statistical models are going to be used to make up for that loss data, which again goes back to the probabilistic way of targeting and advertising. Situation number 2 is because of Google's removal of the third-party cookie, there's going to be a bit of fragmentation, which we can already see in the market right now. So third-party tracking was the common methodology used by almost all performance marketing platforms for many years. Now, this change is prompting different vendors to join different solution groups in preparation for the change. The two most prominent solutions being proposed are Google's Privacy Sandbox and the Unified ID 2.0. We'll look at Google's solution in a minute, but what is important to understand is that the purpose of this is to provide anonymity to the user, while at the same time using browser APIs to continue to allow advertisers to use behavioral targeting. Performance marketing platforms like Criteo and Nextdoor are already part of the FLoC program right now. The second one is the Unified 2.0. Now, this is an idea which was initially launched by Trade Desk, but since then, that stewardship has been passed on to prebid.org to keep the program as neutral as possible. It also has its own list of partners like Nielsen. And the idea here is to work with publishers and allow users to opt into personal marketing. So kind of like what GDPR is, but at a one-to-one level. And I've put a question mark as the third group because this is where things get a little bit hazy. For example, another cohort called SWAN involving OpenX and PubMatic was reported to be formed by Bloomberg. However, sorry about that. Not much is known about the nitty-gritties of this, and there is next to no public announcement made by the alleged parties right now. So it's kind of unclear at this point. So looking at Google's solution, their terminologies are very much avian-based, but how is it actually going to apply? So in essence, we look at the 4 pillars. There are 3 areas: removing third-party cookies, replacing it with algorithm-based cohorts or FLoC. FLoC stands for Federated Learning of Cohorts, and keeping the user data and decision-making inside the browser. So let's have a high-level view of the workflow. So FLoC service creates a FLoC model to start with, which is basically a mathematical model with thousands of cohorts or user groups. And in the next step, on the browser, this is important to know that this happens in the browser, the user evaluation begins, as opposed to happening on some server somewhere. And based on the user's behavior, the browser allocates the user into cohorts. This is based on their browsing history and behavior. Next, the advertiser observes the activity of the cohort on site and shares this with the ad tech partner authorized to serve the ads. When the user then lands on a publisher site, that site observes the cohort of the visitor and shares it with the ad tech platform. The ad tech platform then selects the ads which are relevant to the user's cohort. So you can see it's the user's cohort, not necessarily the user in this case. And then finally, the publisher then displays the ads that are relevant to the traits of the user's cohort. So in essence, what's happening here is the user still gets served a relevant ad, but the advertiser and publisher don't get access to the user on a one-to-one basis. And ultimately, the user gets better control of the policy. And this is a very high-level view of looking at FLoC. But of course, this proposal, being a very radical one, is not without any issues. I think primarily, apart from Chrome, no other browsers have agreed to implement this blocking of it. This includes all the big ones like Safari and Firefox, and privacy-focused browsers like Vivaldi and Brave have outright, objected against this. So basically, what they're saying is this puts even more power into Google's hands to decide how the world of advertising should progress. But given that Google has over 65% market share of the browser industry, I think they can still go ahead with this launch and put pressure on the rest of the ecosystem to adopt this too. So there's a lot of flux around this right now. But while all this is happening, there is a much larger issue in the market space which needs to be addressed. So as can be seen in this survey by Gartner, while 62% of marketeers feel that their personalization is valued, only 49% of consumers, 49% of consumers actually feel freaked out by it, and a further 37% either get angry or feel nothing. Now, in order to bridge this gap, marketeers understand that they have to take a few steps. So some of the areas which are emerging is one is relevancy-based personalization. And that makes a lot of use of artificial intelligence like machine learning and deep learning. And also there is a greater emphasis on A/B testing, which is done on enormous scales now, because instead of making manual groups, a lot of times the AI is able to step in and take up that work from somebody who's on the ground. Also, we can start to see this transition towards these kind of tech. If you look at Gartner's hype cycle for digital marketing 2020, there are various references to market products like personalization engines, identity resolution, real-time marketing. I've underlined some of them there. And these are at various stages of the cycle. I think personally, this was also one of the reasons I was happy to join this Salesforce team, because as Interaction Studio, as a product, this is pretty much what we're doing. Stuff like personalization and engagement in real time. Also, we need to note that this data is from 2020. So given the accelerated adoption of MarTech over the last year, I believe that most of these tech are either at the slope of enlightenment phase or plateau productivity, which means that they've gone through the hype, they've gone through the disappointment in many ways, but at this point, brands are starting to realize their importance, and they're starting to take off one by one. So quickly to recap this is what's getting around is connecting and centralizing data source within something like a CDP. A lot of organizations are also starting to invest in specialized skills, especially data science and measurement experts. But there's also a need to build a strong partner ecosystem, whether you are a brand or a vendor, because obviously there is no one size, one solution that fits all requirements. And a lot of organizations are also moving to a data-driven culture, because that's where this future is. So I guess if I were to summarize this presentation, I would put these 5 takeaways. Number 1 is marketers realize there's a gap between how they perceive personalization versus how the consumers perceive it. So there has to be a bridge which brings both of their requirements somewhere in the middle. I think first-party data is going to be one of the key drivers of this, and how marketers are able to use it for real-time interaction and personalization. We can see that browsers will have a bigger role to play moving forward. So there's going to be a lot of innovation and a lot of diversification there. Plus, what's actually going to thrive in this time is going to be platforms which have proper real artificial intelligence working, machine learning, deep learning, etc., and not just a bunch of scripts which they claim to be AI, which, to be honest, it isn't. Finally, we can see that AdTech is getting more and more merged with MarTech to a point where, they have always worked a little bit separately in this space, but the lines are blurring to a point where we may end up with jargons like MadTech being thrown around in a few months' time. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much, and we can move to the questions now.
All right, thank you, Udip, for your presentation. I think this is a very relevant topic because the whole digital marketing landscape is actually really changing as we speak. All right, so our very first question for 𝗍𝗫𝗍, what's your view about the workaround developed in China? And would advertisers in the West have access? So I think the workaround developed in China is revolving around iOS. Yeah.
I think one of the first things about China is that while the operating system remains the same across the world, the kind of publisher network is very different in China. So I think, and also the fact that because the West, in a way, is tech-wise is more diversified. And honestly, I'll be honest, I'm not actually sure what tech development you're referring to, but just looking at the kind of fragmentation of the market in the West versus China, I think whatever solutions we're trying to implement in China actually has a higher chance of succeeding within their own boundaries. But in the West, I mean, if you just look at layers of attribution, for example, what 𝗧𝗧 is talking about versus what 𝗧𝗧 is talking about, they're coming up with slightly different approaches. I wouldn't say one of them is better than the other because we're at a point where there isn't sufficient data to find out. But I think what we're going to see is that while the solutions that are coming out of China may work really well there, I think if there's going to be a longer time frame in the West where the best solutions will take time to emerge, and there's a lot of solutions to come and go. But that will probably take about a couple of years because iOS-wise, I guess we are more prepared. But when you start to look at what's going to happen with Chrome and the removal of third party, that's not even happened yet, right? So I would say, in essence, it's going to take a slightly longer time for us to understand this situation. It's a bit too early at this point.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think China always have very interesting ways, which I think sometimes I do find it quite hard to understand as well. All right, so moving on to our next question. So this question is from Ben. I think he's asking whether you can walk us through the green pillar slide again and how you anticipate that evolving moving forward.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I can do a quick one again. So basically, FLoC is the system, right? And FLoC is where the cohorts are made, which is different categories. Like it could be like for something like travel, you could have adventure travelers, you can have luxury travelers, etc. But then you can have thousands and thousands of these cohorts. Now, traditionally or like historically, what would happen is these segments would be built, but they will be kind of stored on a server, which is one of the issues with privacy because a lot of users are not comfortable with that. So instead of that, what this solution proposes is that the browser, which is basically on the user's device and essentially in a way owned by the user, is where these cohort building activity will happen. So that takes away some of the concerns that users might have about this. So what happens is, let's say you take the example of Amazon, this simple example. They're the advertising in this case. Someone comes on the site based on their behavior, what products they look at, etc. It's now the browser which is able to understand this and just send the cohort that the user belongs to, not the user's details themselves. So it's like, okay, this user is interested in like trekking shoes, for example, right? This is the only information that the advertiser Amazon is going to be able to share with an ad tech partner. Whoever that ad tech partner is, could be Google, could be Facebook, could be Trade Desk, anybody. Now the same user, when they move to the publisher side, like in our case, that's a straight time. The browser is now communicating with the publisher, saying that okay, this user belongs to this cohort. So what now the publisher can do is a partner at the platform can now get this information from the publisher and select the ads appropriate for the user's cohort. And finally, that ad is kind of pushed to the publisher, and the publisher displays it on the site. So I think Look, I think the whole system is not too different from what we have today, except primarily that the kind of user cohort creation and user group creation is happening on the browser, and I think that is probably one of the biggest aspects which separates this from how we are working. We have been working traditionally for many years. I guess it's important for Google and the industry to communicate to users that in a simplified way that this is what's happening, because that's when they will start to actually feel the benefits of privacy. So yeah, I hope that helps clarify that.
Yep, sorry, I was on mute. All right, so I think that definitely helps. So I think Ben has a follow-up question. So does this mean that users don't have to be logged into the browser for this whole system to work?
I'm sorry, so when you said lock in, I'm just trying to understand. Does that mean the users can bounce from browser to browser, or?
All right, so I think when he means login is like our Chrome browser, because at the Chrome browser, users are usually logged in. So that
login, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of the details which is not clear as of now, because this is in a sandbox model. But I guess we'll find the answer to that in maybe a few months' time. From what I know so far, yeah. It's very experimental, to be honest, but this seems to be the most likely to replace the current model.
Right. All right, thank you. All right, so our next question from Nikun. So how will grocery companies in milk, cheese, ice cream category deploy first-party data strategy, as they often don't have much to interact with they don't have much data to interact with customers, and they still do advertise on digital medium? So this is just a follow-up, as most of the times there's no loyalty program associated with these kind of products.
I see. I think it's one of the things which is important for these kind of brands is when you talk about grocery, but if it's an e-commerce site, right, it's easy because it's just a product at the end of the day. Somebody has to sign in with an email or phone number. You can use that to create a unique identifier, make a one-to-one connection back in a database, and then you can push out messages to them across, whether it's advertising, emails, etc. So I guess something like a CDP or a personalization engine can solve that. But I guess if you try to look at other kind of organizations like P&G, for example, who don't really have an e-commerce element to their site, and that's when it starts to get a little bit more tricky, because one of the only few things that you can look at is the browser behavior, and usually people don't provide the first-party identifiers like emails or phone numbers. But many a times, what we've seen so far, and with Salesforce, is that a lot of times this can be solved to a certain extent by collecting user information at offline points. It's not always easy to connect it back to an online environment, but through activations like offline offers which can be activated online, that's one of the ways to kind of build that user profile. So that's one of the ways. Secondly, even if you don't really have an e-commerce element, like there are, for example, I don't remember the name of the brand exactly, but it's the baby product organization, which instead of having an e-commerce element, they have a blog which talks about how somebody can get ready to have a baby, and they take them through the whole process. So it's very chronological. But to get access to that, to get access to the blog, they request the email ID of the moms, and that's one of the ways. So I guess it's a very practical scenario. To be honest, looking at performance marketing, it's not something that non-e-commerce space have done for a long time anyway. I don't think that scenario is going to change, but I think the tactics remain the same. But you have to just be a little bit inventive in trying to find ways to collect that bit of data, which allows you to create that unique user identifier in the back.
All right, thank you. All right, so is there any of these questions that actually stands out to you more?
Actually, yeah, all very good questions. I think, so you asked me to select?
Yeah. So just select one that actually.
Okay, I'll go with Nikun.
All right. So congrats, Nikun. So do drop us an email, okay? All right. Thanks, Udip, for your very insightful presentation.
Yes.
All right. So next up, we have a tech session. So we actually have Marissa from Lotame, and she will be actually showcasing to us how the platform works. So over to you, Marissa.
Cool. Thanks for having me today. Let me just share my screen. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so before I start, I guess just a quick introduction about me. I'm Marissa. I work as a solutions consultant at Lotame. So I help businesses see, how they can actually leverage Lotame to meet their business objectives. So just a very high level overview of Lotame as well before I actually go into the demo. For those of you that don't know, Lotame is a data management platform. So we help clients, manage their first party data. And we have the world's largest third-party data exchange as well. So, we work with both marketers and publishers, a lot of different brands to help them with their marketing and advertising. Something interesting as well, I guess it's a nice segue from what Udi just presented. Lotame does have our own identity solution as well. So Udi was mentioning about Unified 2.0. So you can think of Lotame as playing that space as well. I think there's a lot of identity providers that's being popping up recently. Lotame is actually one of them as well. So we do have an identity solution that is baked into our platform itself. So we do probabilistic kind of linking, which is what Udi mentioned as well. That is, kind of different from trade desk in the sense where they're actually working on deterministic linking itself. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of Lotame. I'm just gonna jump straight into the platform so you guys can look at what we have available. So this is essentially the Lotame platform itself. And this is where a lot of the work takes place, where our clients will come in here and build segments for them to use for their marketing purposes, whether it's for analytics because they want to understand their own users, or whether it's building segments to help them reach new customers. So let's just take an instance for this purpose of this session. Right? Let's say I am a bank and I am using Lotame. So the bank itself can actually bring all of their data within Lotame platform itself and organize their data within here. So what they can do once the data is in the platform is that they can actually directly kind of create segments on their first party users and do targeting specifically on that. Now, Lotame is very strong on the third party data marketplace. So imagine that, let's say this bank, they are working on a user acquisition campaign and they want to target and look for more people who is interested in, let's say, I don't know, let's say travel. Probably not a good example in COVID, but let's just say that they have a credit card that they want to push and that focuses on kind of collection of points and it's a travel credit card. So what they can do is that, they can actually create a segment that is targeting travel lovers, and whether they want to overlay it with their kind of data as well is something that they can do. And once that is actually achieved, you can actually just go ahead and save this segment and use it for targeting itself. Now, Lotame also creates analytics reports for every single segment that is being created by the clients itself. So I'm going to show you guys very shortly, the kind of analytics reports that's being churned out by the platform. So I think one thing, that's interesting as well is, we are working on a second party data exchange as well. So we do work with a lot of different publishers, and those publishers can actually monetize their data directly. So let's say OCBC wants to purchase data from MediaCorp and they are both our clients. This would be made possible because Lotame can actually connect them together and make, let's say, MediaCorp's data available to OCBC to purchase directly, and which they can subsequently use as well for the analytics and targeting purposes. So this is the actual analytics kind of tool that I was talking about, that we do kind of churn out for each segment that is being created. So when users kind of create segments on a platform, Lotame actually looks at the segment that's being created itself, what's the demographics breakdown of the audience itself, what is the gender, what does it look like, what's the age, regions where people are coming from, and something more interesting for our clients is something called top behaviors. Essentially, what this is, it really tells the kind of client, what interest do we see the people in the segment have. So this really helps them in understanding, their own customer base. So in this example, this is a segment of people who are interested in traveling to Japan, and you can see that the report actually tells them that, hey, your users are actually very interested in Asian food and cuisine. So let's say you wanted to kind of target people, you could actually go ahead and target people who is interested in this age group if you wanted to go for more skill, let's just say. So we also have the discovery dashboard. It really allows the clients to kind of just play around with the tool directly if they wanted to kind of hone into a specific vertical and see how this particular segment is behaving against a specific industry, a specific vertical. This is something that they can do as well. So yeah, this is in a nutshell, what you can do with the platform and how it looks like. And just a very high level overview. There's a couple of other features that we have in the platform. Something that we do as well is to help our marketers track their campaigns. So with the tracking of the campaigns itself, Lotame then looks at again, what are the interests and all of these things that those people have. And from there, we do make recommendations on the kind of segments or data points that marketers can potentially use within their campaigns itself, and that could potentially help them improve their performance of the campaign, let's say. And finally, Lotame also has a lookalike model kind of machine that is available for clients to use, whereby if they wanted to kind of scale up their campaigns, because Lotame has a lot of information about people browsing on the net, let's just say. So with an audience that let's say a bank wants to expose and increase their scale on, they could tell us, hey, this is the group of users that I want more people like them. They would then put that seed within Lotame platform itself, and what we're going to do is we're going to look for more people with those similar traits, and from there churn out X amount of audiences that is defined by the client for them to go ahead and use it for their kind of targeting itself. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna keep it short. Don't want to go too much into the weeds of the platform with you guys. But yeah, I'll just open it up for questions, I guess, at this point.
Hey Marissa, thank you for that quick walkthrough. Not so common to get a walkthrough of Lotame. Thanks for your time and also taking us through. Questions so far? Yeah, I have a question. It's from me, Marissa. Does this need any implementation on the client side who's subscribing to Lotame, like implementation of tracking codes or tags on their websites?
Yeah, it does in terms of first-party data management. If you want to manage your data with Lotame, then we do require the tags to be placed. But if you're just going for a pure use case where you're just a marketing team where you just want to do pure user acquisition campaigns, let's say, you can just use the Lotame platform, purchase data, and use that for audience targeting. So in that case, you wouldn't actually need to place the tags as well.
Got it. So it depends on the use case that we subscribe to Lotame for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. I had a follow-up question on use cases itself, Marissa. So you mentioned first-party data management. Apart from providing audiences to target for and run our campaigns, you also provide a use case in terms of managing clients' own first-party data, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we do help clients manage their own data. A lot of people say that the DMPs are heavily affected because of the cookieless world, and that is why actually Lotame went into the identity solution and started working towards that direction. So just to kind of give a high-level walkthrough as well. So in terms of first-party data management and how it ties together with the identity solution, basically whatever you're browsing, whether it is on your desktop, let's say Marissa is looking on the desktop, she is doing some research on travel, and Lotame would know that Marissa, let's say, is interested in travel, right? And let's say I also go on the go. So I'm on the go and I'm actually using my phone and I do shopping, right? So based on that, Lotame would also know that, hey, you're actually interested in shopping. But if you look at those two devices, you would actually see them as two separate devices and not as one person. And that's where the identity solution comes in, right? Where we would actually tie that to a person at that level.
That makes sense. Thank you, Marissa. One more question from John. Is this lookalike modeling in Lotame similar to the ones in, say, Facebook or Google? They have their own on-platform lookalike modeling as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of different partners, they have their own lookalike modeling. It is, I would say, same but different in the sense that, what data that Google has and what data that Facebook has is what data they have within their own ecosystem. Whereas what Lotame has is, what is available in the open web and what we see people have. So yeah, I mean, that is the difference, I would say, between the lookalike models itself.
Got it, Marissa. Agree. Concept-wise, it's lookalike, but still the input data, the model behind it, and what you can get differs.
Yeah, correct.
Got it. One more question from the audience, Jay. What are some unusual or unexpected audiences to vertical fit that you have come across?
Oh, you're asking about uncommon
Yeah, unusual or unexpected audiences.
That's a good question. Well, to be quite honest, the segments that I've seen coming in these days are not that uncommon, I would say. But what is popular recently is e-wallets segments within this region. So I'm guessing that's probably because of COVID as well. Everyone is shifting online and there's this proliferation of e-wallet segments. So that is something that is very popular these days, actually.
E-wallet, right. Thank you, Marissa. One more question from our audience, Brenda. Does Lotame has a robust data access on China audiences? That's also a common question.
Yeah, that's also a common question. Unfortunately, China is kind of a closed market to Lotame, so Lotame actually doesn't operate in the China market itself.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. So you have two questions from which you can choose.
Yeah,
when as Marissa, Jay and Brenda. Jay was on the unexpected audiences, and Brenda's question was on China audiences.
Yeah, I guess Jay, for the interesting question.
Audiences, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Marissa. Thanks for your time. Jay, do reach out to us over email. Share your email ID. Cool. I think that's a wrap. Thanks, Marissa, Richard, and Udi for your time to share your thoughts and knowledge on these very relevant topics. As you could see, it was very engaging on the trends, right? Thank you, audiences, for joining us, attending us, and keeping us run the show month on month. Look forward to seeing you again on the next month session as well. Last but not the least, thanks to our sponsors, eClerx, 𝗧cie 𝗽𝗶𝗰, Sparkline, for having us, for supporting us to run this month over month. Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time again. Have a great evening. See you all in the next month's session. Thank you, John. See you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.